black thing go from left to right, and I thought, I'm going to die out here. No one's ever going to know.
I couldn't believe what my eyeballs were showing me. I'll never forget how evil the eyes were. It was horrible. I mean, I've never seen nothing that evil.
It ran towards me at a rate that I can't even explain. Turned and stared at me, and this look of, I just want to kill you. I want to say it was human, but it wasn't.
He was yelling at me to grab a gun, grab a gun. I was like, for what? He said, just grab a gun. And there's footprints all the way to the door of my house. It had went inside my garage all the way to the door.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
See ya!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
You're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. Check us out online at sasquatchchronicles.com. If you've had an encounter, email me. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you tonight. We'll be talking to David. And David had an encounter in California back in the early 80s. And it reminded me a lot of the William Rowe encounter. I know you guys have heard me talk about the William Rowe. I even did kind of a recreation of that account. Very similar account. And we'll also be talking to Linda. And Linda comes to us from Maine. And she's had a lot of strange and odd things going on and around her property, including hearing something not quite human saying, help me, and things running across her roof. Very odd, strange things going on out there on this cabin that she owns out in the woods. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance to check out sasquatchchronicles.com, you can become a member and get additional shows. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome David to the show. David, thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here, David. And I can't wait to hear your encounter. I know it took place in California in the early 80s. But if you would kind of take us back to that moment, what were you doing and what happened?
Sure. It was summer, and I was thinking about, I'm pretty sure it was 84. I was 21 years old at the time, and I'm an avid fisherman, hiker, and I just love to just kind of explore, go off on my own. And I was coming back from a hike up by Huntington Lake, California, which is up in the John Muir Wilderness, and it's once you get away from Huntington Lake, it's very secluded. There's not much of anything, but mountains and forest. But I was just coming back from a day hike, and it was probably around 4 o'clock or so. And I was coming down the mountain, and I just found this spot that was just heavenly. It was just beautiful. It was probably a 2-acre meadow, and it was surrounded by redwoods. And I just had to stop, and I was sitting on this rock face. It was probably about, I'm guessing, 12 to 15 feet above where the meadow floor was. And like I said, it was surrounded by a redwood forest. And I noticed, after sitting there for about an hour or so, I noticed some movement off to my left. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And as it came out further, I thought it was a grizzly bear. And then it wasn't so interesting. It was kind of scary because I know to be afraid of grizzlies. Yeah. But then I thought, wait a minute, that can't be a grizzly bear. there hasn't been grizzly bears in California since like 1922, I believe, was when they were officially counted extinct. But anyway, the thing kept coming out further and further from the forest edge, and it came out in the open, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not a bear, and it's certainly not a deer. I mean, this thing was it was a good 7 feet tall. And one of the things about it that I found fascinating was the hair color was orange, like a tabby cat orange. And it was on 2 feet. And walking out into the meadow, it did not know I was there, because on the rock face that I was sitting, I was kind of in a little concave area of the rock face. And I was up high, so I'm assuming he didn't get a whiff of me because of that. But anyway, as he came out, he was just kind of meandering through that meadow, just, foraging, just pulling things up like plants and breaking off sticks from certain types of shrubs and stuff. And he would stick it in his mouth and eat it like we would eat a corn on the cob. You could see his lips just going bubble, 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 as he pulled the stick through, and he was nibbling the leaves right off the branches. And then every once in a while, I could see he would clamp down, he'd bite down on the branch after he took all the leaves off. And I don't know if he was sucking juice out or what, but I was just watching him, and he kept kind of meandering through the meadow, but he was coming closer and closer to me. And when I first saw him, he couldn't have been more than 30 feet away from me, but I was about 15 feet up too. But he kept kind of doing that. This whole thing had to be at least 10 minutes. And he kept coming towards me. And I figured I better make myself known, because the last thing I want to do is startle an animal that size that I have no idea what it is or what its temperament is. So I just raised my hand and just kind of said hi. And it just froze, and it looked at me and zoomed on me immediately. And that was the first point that I was actually afraid. I mean, truly afraid, because it knew where I was. And I know nothing about these. I didn't know what it would do. And incidentally, the eyes on this thing were they were fascinating, because they were the same color as the hair, which was kind of an orangish color. And you could see whites, and the eyes looked pretty much human, except they were a little bigger. They weren't huge, saucery like a lot of times I've heard, but they were just a little bit bigger than human eyes. But anyway, the thing, we just kind of stood there and looked at each other, for at least, I'm guessing at least a minute. And then it started to walk away, but the body turned to walk away, but his head didn't move. It stayed locked on me. And as it was walking away, I just thought it looked funny, because I don't know how it could see where it was going or whatever, but its head was turned 3/4 of the way back, and it was walking forward. And as it was walking toward the meadow to leave, it was leaving. Inside, I was thinking, I don't want it to leave. But then a part of me was like, I'm glad this thing's leaving, because I'm still alive, But the curiosity part of me won. And again, I raised my hand and I waved, and I just said, don't go. And he stopped. And at this time, he faced me fully with his body, and slowly started to raise his right hand, and just raised it, probably 7-8 inches, which tells me that was an acknowledgement of some sort, whatever it was. I think he was just as curious about me as I was about him. But it did not stay. It just kind of stood there and looked at me for another few seconds and turned and walked in the woods. And at that point, when he turned his head and he was totally not facing me at all.
And this happened in the early 80s. Did you tell anyone? I mean, what did you do next? Did you just leave?
No, I'm somewhat of a spiritual person, and I just had to sit there and talk to my maker about what I just saw, and it's like, what did you just show me here? What is that? What did I just see? And when I was a kid and such, of course, that one famous Bigfoot, I forget who took the recording of it, but
yeah, the Patterson Gimlin one.
Yes, yes, yep. I was fascinated by that. Never, and was interested in it, but never studied it or really got into it. But that's the only thing I could come up with that would explain what I just saw.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I mean, you're kind of in shock, I would imagine, and not really sure what.
Yeah, it's shock / wonderment, because like I say, I wasn't terrified, and I wasn't really scared until it looked up at me when I raised my hand and said hi. At that point, I was scared then because I got a full-on look of its face. And it had a round face, and it was so human. The human attributes of this thing blew me away. But it's like, okay, it's got this human face, but it's got this big, huge frame and body, and it's like, what am I seeing? And what's it going to do? But after it turned and started walking away, when it was locked on me, I realized I kind of figured it meant me no harm. I was still frightened, but I realized it wasn't going to hurt me. At least I didn't think it would, because it was walking away from me.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I was going to ask you to kind of describe it. I mean, would you say more of a Neanderthal? Is that what you were kind of, what we imagine?
Yeah, yep. Where I'm from, we have a lot of Ojibwe Indians, and the depictions of them, back, 100, 110 years ago, it looks very similar to that. Except for the nose. The nose did look human, but it looked kind of flattened, and the nostrils were kind of, how can I say, facing out or something. You saw more nostril, but it was very much a human-looking nose. It was just flatter, and you saw more nostril. And the other thing about the body that I noticed, the hands, that I thought I was just taken by the whole thing, but the top of the hands had no hair, and the bottom of the hands didn't have any hair. It just had that gray skin like the face was. A lot of animals have no hair on the bottom of their palm, and their pads. Well, it was the same with the top on the hands, but the fingers, on the top had hair. So that was just like, wow. And the other thing, you think of a wild creature like this, you think would be all haggard and who knows, full of bristles and cockleburrs and stuff. This thing looked like it just came out of the Sasquatch salon, man. I mean, it was clean, and it looked like it groomed itself. And the hair from about the armpit, and it looked like about down to the wrist, was longer, and it kind of hung like corn silk. It kind of hung, and when the wind would blow, it would flow really easy. So it was like a thinner hair there, and it was about, I'd say a good 4 inches longer than the other hair that was on the body.
Did you notice, you keep saying he, did you notice genitals, or was it just that?
Yes, it would be very hard not to notice. I mean, yeah, it was definitely male.
And I'm curious, when you said hey, I mean, you're really close to this saying, Did the facial expression change, or did it? I mean, did it?
No. The only thing that changed on his face was I saw his eyebrows. They very distinctly went up. And speaking of the facial expression, the whole time I was watching it, it had this expression like it was sad, or worried or something. It just had that kind of look on its face, but it wasn't. It was just, that's just seemed to be its natural look on its face. But yeah, when it saw me, when I said that, when it saw me, the eyebrows went way up, and the thing just froze and didn't make a move. Yeah.
And it never vocalized or anything at you?
Never. Nope. Never vocalized anything. It was very, very quiet the whole time. I didn't hear anything at first. When I first noticed it, I didn't hear a thing. No twigs snapping, no leaves rustling, nothing. And I just noticed the movement. It was just, out of place on the edge of the forest. And yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I mean, the whole encounter really fascinates me, especially its reaction. And I know when we were talking the other day, I was asking about the skin, and you had said gray. A lot of people will say like that battleship gray color.
The first thing that popped into my head was the ashes of a bonfire, or a campfire, when it gets down. It's that gray after they cool off. That's what it looked like. It was a light gray kind of color.
And David, you said the thing was about 7 feet tall. Is that what you would?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, because I'm about 6'2", and just by looking at where it was with the rock face, I'd say it was in between 7, maybe 7.5.
So it wasn't like the King Kong, 10 foot tall.
No,
I got you.
No, it was big, and it had wide shoulders. I'd probably say, I don't know, maybe 3.5 feet across from shoulder to shoulder. So it was wide, but it was more built like from the shoulders down, it seemed to go more into a V instead of, just like a stump. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
It did go down. It seemed to anyway. It seemed to go narrowed in a little bit on the waist, and then the legs were very tree trunky, really big up at the thigh. And I didn't see much. I wish I had the opportunity to see like its feet and stuff, but I wasn't able to because the grass meadows and the shrubs and such were probably a good 3-4 feet high back there, 3.5 feet. So yeah. I didn't see much below the knee, but the rest was totally fascinating, and I'll never forget it. I've often wanted to have a similar encounter like that again because of the curiosity factor, but no such luck.
Yeah, I hear you. I think it's fascinating behavior, though, when you really think about it. I mean, it reminds me of the William Rowe account. I mean, I hear of a lot of accounts of these things chasing deer, chasing wild hogs, and I do think that they are foragers. I think that they probably spend most of their day foraging and hunting, but you don't hear a lot. I don't think people get the glimpse that you got of this saying, foraging and eating leaves. It kind of reminds me of the William Rowe encounter, to be honest with you. The Canadian who was, actually I think he was American, but he was in Canada, and he sat there and watched this thing, and just like you described, it would wrap its lips around the branches and tear off leaves and eat them. Very fascinating.
See, you were telling me about that, and what episode was that again?
I think it was 560. I think it was 560.
I'm going to have to look at. I really wanted to look at that or listen to that, and I haven't got a chance to yet. But yeah, it was almost, to me, I've got a twisted sense of humor or whatever, but to me, to watch those lips just go, kind of flapping along and pulling off the leaves on the branch as it just kind of went through its mouth, it was kind of humorous in a way, and you could hear that much. You could hear the lips kind of flapping as it was going over the pulling off the foliage from the branches. But yeah, other than that, there was no noise at all.
Yeah, the other question I want to ask you is, you had saw the Patterson-Gimlin film. Obviously, that one's female. It has breasts. But how did it compare to what you saw? Obviously, colors are different, but I'm talking about overall look. How did it compare to Patty?
It's almost night and day. The one on the film, the Patterson film, that thing seemed more like King Kong. I mean, that thing was it was big, black. Well, not that this one wasn't big, but the shape was totally different. This one, if you looked at it, if you looked at it from the back, you'd probably think it's female because of it was more curved, I guess, if you want to say that. It wasn't just a big, like that Patterson one. That was just a big, huge. It just seemed to be almost the same at the shoulders as it was down at the waist. The thing and the chest on that Patterson one, oh my gosh. I don't think this one had that massive chest like that. Again, it was big, but it wasn't that like big round. And I'm not just talking about the breast on the Patterson one. I'm talking about the whole upper part of the body.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Patty's built like a vending machine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The refrigerator.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Did you ever tell anyone, or I mean, did it ever? I realize there's curiosity, and in this type of encounter, I could see wanting to see it again and wanting to experience it again because it really wasn't aggressive. I mean, it didn't do anything. But did you ever tell anyone about your encounter?
I didn't for a couple years, and it's not because I was afraid of any reaction, or anything like that. It's just a lot of the people that I hung out with, my family included, there probably wouldn't have been a lot of interest in it, and I don't know if they would have believed me anyway, so I figured, what's the point? But there were the first person that I actually told was my mother, years later. And she goes, well, you never told me that. I said, Mark, it's like, I didn't think they would believe me, but she did believe me. And she was asking me a lot of questions about it. And she really wanted to know why I didn't tell her when I was out there, when it first happened.
Yeah. And I can understand that. I can understand not wanting to tell family. Did you ever go back to that area?
Yes. I mean, that was one of my favorite spots. I would love to fish Huntington Lake, and I would set up camp there, and, I'd either fish or else I would take off on a hike. I would go off the beaten path, as it were. So I ran into a few interesting things, but, I definitely went back.
And did you ever see it again?
No. I wanted to. I really did. There was something I wanted to. I guess I wanted to somehow communicate with it and find out what it was. It's stupid. It sounds ridiculous, but
no,
I did. The curiosity in me got the best of me. Now, that being said, if it was anything like some of these encounters that you've had on there, where these people, no way would I go back there. I mean, I know these people aren't making up stories with what they saw, because you can hear it in their voice, when they're telling you on your podcast there.
It's so bizarre, isn't it, with the behavior? I mean, it's so hit and miss. I think normally when you startle an animal, usually it'll attack you. It'll run or attack you.
Yes.
Most predators will attack you. And, its behavior was just like, well, I'm out of here. And, but you do hear that a lot, where there's really no aggression. And then there's other times to where people do surprise them and there is aggression. They're bluff charge. They're, they end up getting shot. because there is aggression. And it's so weird how in some accounts you have aggression, and other accounts there's no aggression. They just want to leave.
Right.
It's so hard to figure out. What do you think that Sasquatch is, David? What's your opinion?
Oh, geez. I don't know. And I'm not one that really tries to figure it out. It just is. I don't know. I have no idea. I know it's not an ape, and it's not human. It's neither. So what is it? I don't know. I really don't have a clue. I've been listening to some of those. What's that, Nephilim or whatever that you're talking about?
Oh, the Nephilim. Yeah.
Yeah, in the Bible, where that, and that theoretically certainly makes sense. And I don't know that I really buy the government experiment thing, where they have captured them and did. That just doesn't seem right, because these things have been reported for how many hundreds of years, people have been seeing them.
So do you think it's just like a natural animal? Is that kind of what your opinion is?
No. I don't believe it's a natural animal either, because there is a feeling. If you see one, if you encounter one, I think anybody that has will know what I'm saying. There is a sense, and it's not the fear factor, and it's not the wonderment, or curiosity, but there's something in you that says, this thing shouldn't be here. This is not it's not natural. You just sense that. You feel it somehow inside. And it's not a scary feeling. It's just like, okay, this is not something normal. It's not, it doesn't belong here, but it is here.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think most people have seen him would agree with that statement. If I had never seen an ape and I ran across, let's say, a gorilla, I wouldn't think there was anything. I don't think I would think there was anything odd about it. Just an animal.
No,
just,
it's an animal.
But you're right. With these things, there is that weird sense in the back of your mind of, this isn't right. This thing shouldn't be here. Something's not right. I mean, I think most people would agree with that. I just, in your encounter, there was really no aggression. I mean, and were you armed? I forgot to ask you.
I was not. Nope. But something about this too, about this guy that really was interesting was, you're talking about it not being aggressive. It was not only not aggressive, but I know, okay, when it walked away and it kept its eyes locked on me, that was not out of fear. I know it. It didn't feel threatened. It was just like, what the heck is that? He was looking at me like, what is that thing? And I was looking at him like, what is that thing? I think it was just as curious about me as I was about it. And then, like I said, when it got to the edge of the forest again, and I raised my hand and said, don't go, it turned, faced me fully, and raised its hand up, about a foot or so. It was acknowledging that I had raised my hand, and I thought that was like, wow, this is much more than an animal or something of that nature. Something else, Wes, that is puzzling to me. Now, there have been how many reports of these worldwide? Hundreds and hundreds, thousands.
Thousands, yeah.
And how many documented occurrences are there of these things killing a human being? They threaten.
There has been a few. There has been a few times.
Has there?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't heard of any, but I'm not an expert either.
There's even historical records of it. President, was it Roosevelt? Teddy Roosevelt wrote about one of these things killing. It was 2 miners out. I mean, there is reports of it, but not as many as you might think.
Yeah.
But then again, dead men don't speak either, so you know what I mean.
That is true. But with as many reports as there have been, and especially now when everything is so, you can look up, this is how many have been, and then you look at how many have, even have been attacked, and gone further than a bluff charge or screaming at them and that kind of stuff. It doesn't seem like there's that many. It's almost like there's something possibly programmed in them that they don't attack humans, but maybe not.
I think that they do, but I think it is, there's a lot of missing people type reports, and I've had a lot of those on the show too as well, where I've covered, guys out that are surveyors, and I can't remember the kid's name, but they all walk in a line. I had one of the guys who was on that job site, and he saw them. They encountered these creatures on this property they were working, and one of the surveyors was last in line. They were just talking to him, and when I say last in line, they're about 20 feet from each other as they walk in one big line. He just vanishes. He's gone. And so I think there's a lot of situations like that where people are taken, or very ambush-like tactics to where people are taken, but they always blame it on a bear. They blame it on, even places where there isn't any bears.
Sure, they'll report something, and then it's in the papers as this, right, and then it's forgotten. But
there's been no official to come out and say, hey, a Sasquatch killed this guy, but there's been rumors of it. There's strange missing people, very odd reports that really don't make any sense. And so I think that they do, but I think some of it is if you engage them or not. I think if you shoot at one, you're going to have a fight on your hands. They seem
and I wouldn't blame it.
Yeah.
If it wasn't attacking and you're getting shot at, I wouldn't blame it. But it's just by my encounter, it's more fascination than anything. But I know that can be very, very dangerous too. Because you can't expect, if you do encounter another one, you can't expect to experience the same thing. You might get your head swapped off.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. Not every encounter, there's a lot of people who have an encounter like yours and say, well, they're the gentle forest giants. Well, you ran into one. Doesn't mean the next one you run into. A grizzly bear might turn and walk away from you too as well. Doesn't mean the next grizzly bear will. You never really know with these things, and they are very unpredictable. When you hear of behaviors of, it's like Claire's encounter. I shouldn't be alive, 5:15. Very similar. She was standing up on a rock ledge and saw a whole family of them. She ended up dropping part of her camera that caught their attention, and when it got their attention, they came after her. It wasn't, it didn't turn and just walk away. I think in your situation, you had the higher ground. You had it, even though you didn't have a weapon. And the fact that you didn't really freak out, you didn't scream, you didn't, you were calm. So I think maybe this thing was calm. This is just my opinion, it doesn't mean much, but it is fascinating how it just kind of turned and walked off, kind of had a surprised look, and then kind of kept an eye on you and just walked off.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty much the way it happened. It was surprised, and I know it was curious when it walked off. It was, I'm sure it had the same look on its face that I did on mine, the whole time we were looking at each other.
Yeah, you're both shocked.
Yeah. Just very interesting.
It is. And I can't thank you enough for coming on, David, and sharing it very much. Thank you so much for taking the time.
It was my pleasure.
The elusive beast. I've searched everywhere for this creature. From the top of mountains to the deep forests of the Pacific Northwest. Witnesses describe him as a half man, half ape. Very hairy. He stinks, and some witnesses say he's the ugliest thing they've ever seen. I don't plan on shooting him. I plan on shaving him. And for you hippies out there, don't you worry about your forest brother. I plan on using Manscaped's Lawnmower 2.0. It has proprietary skin-safe technology, but I will keep it above the belt. One day along my journey, I heard the creature. Witnesses have often described it as a mumbling. It sounds like someone talking, but you can't make out the words. That's what I heard.
Welcome to the show, everybody. You're listening to The Confessionals. I am your host, Tony Merkel. Thank you for being here. If you've had an encounter or a story you'd like to share with me on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is theconfessionalspodcast@gmail.com. That's theconfessionalspodcast@gmail.com.
The creature was much uglier than I thought, but I couldn't let it go. I thought to myself, this is my chance. Let's shave that beard. Want to act like an animal? I'm going to treat you like one.
Dude, what are you doing? Dude, Wes, get away from me. No, man, what are you doing? Don't touch my beard. Dude, I have beard oil to sell next Tuesday. Get off my beard. Wes, no. No, Wes, no, Wes, stop. Please stop.
Support for Sasquatch Chronicles comes from Manscaped, who is #1 in men's below-the-belt grooming. And for this filthy animal, I kept it above the belt. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Check out the Manscaped redesigned electric trimmer. Their Lawnmower 2.0 has proprietary skin-safe technology. And I actually really dig the trimmer. I use it for my head and actually for my beard. I know that's not what you're supposed to use it for, but it's great for shaving your head. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code Sasquatch at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. And don't forget to use the promo code Sasquatch. And for the ladies listening, if you're looking for a gift for your man, they actually have some really cool stuff. As I mentioned last week, I really dig the cologne. It doesn't have a perfume type smell. It has kind of a manly man smell. And they have body wash. They have all kinds of cool stuff. If you get a chance, check them out. Manscaped.com. Don't forget to use the promo code Sasquatch. Thank you again to Manscaped for sponsoring the show. I want to welcome Linda to the show. Linda, thanks for coming on.
Oh, it is a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, the pleasure's mine, and I know you've had some weird things going on up there in Maine. Kind of tell us a little bit about this property. How did you come across it, and what are some of the things that stand out that are bothering you?
Well, like I said, we've been looking for a log cabin for like 8 years. And 2 years ago, we found this one. It sits on 3 acres. It's an actual log cabin. It's not, a shack. It's... if you go to Katahdin Wood Products, you can look up my house. That's where it came from. They ship them all over the world. So anyways, you go up this road and you drive by a farm and you have to drive through 2 cow pastures to get to the property. So it's in the woods. We in Maine, they have what they call right-of-ways through property, other people's properties. And so we have to drive on someone else's property just to get to our property. So we're here. We don't live here, obviously. I live on Cape Cod, and I only come here maybe once a month. And since I've been coming here, I did not set out to find a cabin in the woods to find Sasquatch. Do you know what I mean? That wasn't my thought. My thought was to have a place we really love and want to go to all the time. So we start coming up, and right away, like the first couple of days we were here, you're like, wow, it's kind of silent. It's so silent. Like no birds, nothing. So I thought that was a little peculiar. And, as months go by, we keep coming up. And I used to smoke, so I used to go outside all the time, even in the middle of the night. So I'd go out there in the middle of the night, and one night I hear, the loudest whoop. And I was just sitting on the steps, and here, this cabin is off the grid as well, just so that gives you an idea. And I only have little solar powered lights that light up when you cross in front of them, the motion sensor. So I'm just sitting there, and I'm at probably maybe an acre away, I would say, maybe 2 acres at the most that this thing came from. It was just so loud, though. You've heard them, right?
Yeah, I've definitely heard the whoops, and it is alarming when you hear it. I mean, because it doesn't.
So loud.
Yeah, it's kind of a cross between like a person and an animal yelling. But yeah, I get what you mean. I'd be creeped out by it.
Well, this is what I do. I would just get up and walk in the house and close the door. And I said, and every time it happened, I would be like, well, if it's going to get worse or anything else, I'll hear it in the house. But I never heard anything from inside the house. There was a time my sister came up and she said it sounded like something was on the roof. She freaked out and left the next morning. She didn't even stay. I don't know anything about that other than what she just told me. Besides the whoop, I was same thing, went outside, same exact thing. Next thing you know, I don't know if it was a tree knock because I've never heard one before, but it certainly sounded like one to me. And it was so loud as well. I should probably take a step back and explain how I even became a member of Sasquatch Chronicles. And, I was working 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. and I got out of work. Coast to Coast was on. And there you were. So that's how I got introduced.
I got you.
So I started listening to all the episodes and I started learning a little more and learning about their behaviors and learn about this and learn about that. And I said, there's a possibility. All these people can't be, these people have seen these things. And how did John Bendenagel put it? Everyone who sees one discovers it for him or herself. I had come up here with my grandson and my niece. And they're kids. So I was like, all right, you're out here in the woods. You can scream, do whatever you want. Get it out of your system. If you want to yell at something. So we had a great time. And then, so I have a loft upstairs. I go upstairs. My niece is downstairs. She comes upstairs within 5 minutes. She's like, Auntie Linda, I hear growling at my window. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, something's growling outside the window. And I just thought, oh, she just wants to sleep with me. No big deal. Well, my grandson gets up and he's going to go investigate the property. He goes investigates. Now we're all back out on the porch again. And there's an orb floating in the trees. Like a beach ball size orb. And we look at each other and I go, do you see that? They go, yeah, I see that. Do you see that? Do you see that? I'm looking at it. I can't figure it out. Is it moving? No, it's just right in the middle of the two trees. So the next morning we get up and I said, all right, listen, guys, I want you to draw a picture of what you're seeing. And we're all going to go in different rooms. So we all drew a picture of what we saw, and all three of them were identical. So it was pretty cool, pretty interesting. So my grandson says to me, Mama, do you know that when you see orbs, it's a sign that Sasquatch is around? I'm like, what? I'm like, Tori, don't say that. Don't say that. So he stays up all night. I don't know if he had any encounters or any events, but he never said anything. He said it was just nothing went on. So then, now last September I was here, and that's when I fell and broke my back. So this summer it's been really hot. I haven't really done much. So we came up here the last weekend of August, and we leave at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning to get here, and it's a six-hour drive. So by the time 6 o'clock comes around, I'm pretty tired. So the first night I hear this dog, and I thought, oh great, the new neighbors. There was an elderly woman that lived at the end of the pasture, and they must have rented the house out to someone else. I don't know, but I thought, oh great, they've got this dog, and this dog's going to keep barking all night. But within 5 minutes, if that, it sounded like the bark was changing. It was not a bark anymore. And then, this is so freaky. I call it the big one. He has that low tone voice. And it just started bellowing out. It sounded like there was a male and a female arguing with this dog thing barking. And I'm going, okay, I don't know what that is. It's none of my business. Can't understand a word they're saying. I'm going in. So I went in. Didn't think anything of it. It was like, yeah, a couple people arguing last night. No big deal. So I'm back out on the porch again around 6 o'clock. Now, I had just gone for a walk down to my neighbor's to see if she was home yet. And she wasn't. And I had just walked, like I said, we have 3 acres, and part of the acreage is the last acre in the front is a brook that runs through it. And I have a path that goes all around the property to walk on. And I had just done that as well. And I went and sat on this porch again. Keep in mind, I'm on 3 acres, but I'm probably surrounded by 1,000 acres of just wilderness. And Baxter State Park is like an hour up the road. So, which is, all the way to Canadian border is just wilderness. This probably was an acre from my front porch. And it was on my path, basically, to the brook. Coming back from the brook, it was on there. And I swear to God, it was almost the same argument. Like, it sounded like word for word argument over again. Like, and I keep saying he kept going, and the other one was going, and I'm like, I can't, I kept going, what? Like an idiot. I'm like, what? Hello? Is anybody there? And like that, and it's like, 5 more minutes go by and they're still going at it. And next thing you know, it goes, first one, real subtle. Help me. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, I'm not even 5 feet tall. I have no weapons. I have a whistle, okay, and a walking stick. I'm like, I can't do anything for anybody right now. I don't know what to do. And they start arguing again. And next thing you know, it goes even louder and longer. Help. This is so weird. Help me. And I knew right then and there, I just froze. I said, do not go out there. That is not human. Those are not people. There's no people down there. I was just there. And in Maine, you don't go on someone else's property. You just don't do it. So, and I'm like, there's no way. So then I was like, all right, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go right back in the house, go lay down. The next morning, I tell my husband, he goes, why didn't you wake me? Somebody could be hurt. I go, no. If you had gone out there, it wasn't going to be pretty. I just had that feeling that something wasn't right. If I went out there, it was bad news. Believe me, I feel like I wanted to go to the police station. I wanted to tell them there's somebody else there saying, help me. I can't help them. So here I am a month later, still here, standing my ground.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I've heard a lot of weird vocalizations from these things. I don't know that I've heard help me, but I've heard where they go, hello, hello. And I was on the Browns property, and they would call Sarah's name. They would go, Sarah. And so they do mimic. I mean, there's
That's
people
freaky.
where even the siege of Honabi, the brothers talked about that, how they would actually, he said it sounded like his brother out there calling to them. And his brother was gone. He was at work. He wasn't even there. And he said it was close, but it wasn't an exact, it was a little off, but it was close.
Though, they know, it's not, it's not that person, right? Am I saying that correctly? Like, or making that right?
Yeah.
You just know it's not that person. I'm like, there's no people out here. Just like the Browns, there's no people, Yeah. But I don't know what to make of it.
It's a weird thing. It's a really weird thing. And it bothers me because is that something they've heard before? And why did they hear help me? And why are they repeating it? Are they trying to drag you out, get you out to come out to the, out to the woods?
Go down to the brook.
Yeah.
Go down to the brook.
I've heard that before. I mean, even the guy in Oklahoma, the old man, he said that it would call his dog Peanut. It would come out to the window and call his dog Peanut. Trying to get the old man to come out. That's my opinion. I think he was trying to get the old man to come out.
I agree. And I spoke with my neighbors last night. Now, they just bought the 2 acres next to ours this past fall last year. So it's been almost a year. But they came up in the spring. And due to one reason or another, she ended up getting a job and working in Bangor and commuting by herself in a pop-up tent all summer. I looked at her, I said, you are brave. I said, did anything go, how did you do it? And she said, one night It sounded like someone was at my window going, hey, like, in a rougher voice. I said, what'd you do? She says, I just covered my head with the blankets. It's okay. So the next thing that happens to her, she got up and left. She said it sounded like, and I don't know why she used this description. I don't know what, she said it sounded like a goat dying. And I don't know what that sounds like. I'm not even sure I could Google it safely. But that's what she said. I go, what? She goes, I got so scared I left at like 1 a.m. She just left the camper.
Yeah, bizarre.
I know, right? I'm like, well, I'm glad I haven't heard a goat being killed.
I've heard, what's weird is I've heard a lot of witnesses talk about pigs, like a pig sound. And even places where they don't have wild hogs, I've had some witnesses go and then actually see the creatures afterwards. But they said it sounded like a pig, like a wild hog.
Wow, that's amazing.
In the brush. Yeah, that's bizarre. Have you seen anything odd? Have you walked around the property and beyond?
I have. The next morning when we went down there looking for tracks, footprints, any evidence of human beings, anybody dead, that kind of thing. I found like 6 trees that were broken in a row at like anywhere from 5 feet to 10 feet up. And they were all anywhere from 2 to 3 inches big, the trees in circumference. When you walk up the hill to go to the cabin, there was a big, giant X in the woods. But from the porch, you couldn't see it. You could only see it if you were in the woods and coming from that angle. So this morning I went down, showed my sister the trees, and the X is now gone. Nothing. It's gone. There's no more X. I'm like, okay, they must be mad at me. They took away their X, their location divider, or whatever it is. I don't know. But
yeah, it's strange when you start getting involved in this because, in my opinion, I think you find out it's a lot weirder than what you originally thought. And I want to ask you about that orb. What color was that orb, and how big do you think it was?
We know that it was. We all agreed that it was about the size of a beach ball. The good size bigger than a basketball, beach ball. But it looked like a dull white light. And like it was pulsating. And the light would come from the center and pulsate out and go back in, pulsate out, that type of thing. And I'm actually standing underneath the trees that it was in. It was probably 20 feet up in the air, just sitting there between the 2 trees. I mean, I even went inside the house and shut every curtain, shut every light off because I didn't want. If I could recreate it or create, interfere with it, I knew it was something to do with the house, throwing off an orb, but nothing. No, nothing. It was still there. It was just hanging there. And I think at one point it just blinked out, I guess. I don't know. I don't stick around.
It's so strange. Yeah.
I leave.
Well, it's so bizarre. And I've said this in the past. A lot of times when people have these things on their property, they'll see the lights. I'll ask them, have you seen the lights? And most of the time, they'll see the lights before they see the creatures, which I don't really get. Eventually, they'll run into the creatures, but generally, they'll go on and on about these weird balls of light that they're seeing. I wonder why your grandson said that when they're around, the Bigfoots are around.
I don't know. I said, what? I was like, why do you say that? He goes, I don't know. I must have heard it on one of your shows. I said, okay. But, we don't have TV, so we just listen to, anything we can get. So.
No, I hear you.
But it's so bizarre. I mean, I could tell you about it. I went to Yellowstone and we were staying in Montana and we went for a hike up Yankee Jim Canyon. My husband is an artist and he was down below painting. My sister was taking a nap on a blanket next to him. And my son and my grandson and my nephew go up this hill, this mountain. And we get like 3/4 of the way up. And all of a sudden it is stone cold quiet. Not a sound. And I looked at my son and he looked at me. He goes, do you feel that? I'm like, yeah, we need to leave. Something's not right. there's not a sound. Nothing. Again, nothing. So we come down, and my husband, he goes, "Did you feel that?" I'm like, now we're hiking up a mountain, and he's down bottom, and he's like, "Did you feel that?" I'm like, "You felt it?" I'm like, "I felt it." I go, "Sasquatch is around." Just jokingly, you know. Well, not that I expected to hear any of this.
What did you feel?
It just felt like there was a presence there, that it was like the air got really thick, and it was just, I'm looking around trying to see if there's like a cougar or something, anything, a grizzly, anything, and I'm like, there's nothing here. It just felt like you were being watched almost, and it's just, I'm like, we practically ran down the mountain to get out of there.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, one question. I'm really curious about the cabin. Now, how long ago has the cabin been empty for a while before you guys moved in?
It was. Good question. It was empty for about 3 years, and it was never ever used for other than a hunting lodge. It was never used permanently all the time. It was only used for hunting. I think they said it was vacant for 3 years before we bought it. I think between our activity and now their activity, if September's their month to go passing through here, I'm just guessing. I don't know anything. So, because it seems like this is the time of year where things start happening. This in the fall is when you hear them or hear noises, and that didn't. I mean, I've heard bobcats here. We have black bear here. We have turkeys in the front yard. We have pheasant. We have all these different animals that you can hear and see, but nothing sounded like this. And I actually listened to the episode with Ron Moorhead and is it Scott Nelson? Does Sasquatch have a language?
Yeah, Scott Nelson.
And when you played the samurai chatter, that one with the deep voice is so similar to what I'm hearing out here in these woods. It's my stomach sank when I heard that. and it's not like I haven't heard it 100 times. I did, but in my mind, this could not be happening. Does that sound right? Sound like makes sense?
Yeah, I mean,
I was
sense.
like, I'm not hearing these things.
Yeah, it always happens to someone else, or it shouldn't happen to me. Or I get
right.
it. Yeah,
I'm like, no. I'm like, but when I listen to that again, I'm like, oh my God, it's almost identical, just about. Just that tone, and there's one line that he says that one says, it sounded, I swear it was almost identical to what this one said. And I said, listen to me, I don't know. I mean, what are they doing out there, right? I don't know. It's freaky though.
What portion of it sounded like the one you're hearing? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was the one, he kept going, when the other one, the younger one with the high voice, the older male, the bigger male, I guess it was, is what I think Ron said. The big guy, I think he called him. And he would be doing that, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like, that's not a bear, That's definitely not a black bear. That's definitely not a cat, I'm like going through the list of, critters that are out here, and I'm going, nothing, like, that's not a porcupine. But there was 3 of them, and that's what threw me off, was more so or led me to go towards Sasquatch, because the 2 going back and forth and the stupid barking thing that didn't sound like a bark. After 2 barks, after the first 2 barks, it sounded. My husband actually heard it yesterday morning. He said it barked at him, and then he said it started sounding like a monkey. And I said, "What?" Yeah. I'm like, that was yesterday morning. And this is broad daylight. This is not at night. This isn't, it's not even in darkness yet.
Yeah, one of the things that's pretty troubling is that it's saying, "Help me." Now, if we go with the theory that they're mimicking us, that means it heard us say, "Help me."
Right. And that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, where did they hear that?
Well, I've heard a lot of mimics where they'll go, "Hello, hi, hello." I've heard that from hunters, to where there was one in particular where he whistled at one, and he thought it was a guy in a ghillie suit. And he goes, "Hello," in a real deep, raspy voice back to him. It goes, "Hi." When he got a double look at it, he was like, "That's not a man. That's something else."
No, I mean, I'm sure you've heard it before. These forests are so thick here. You can't. The leaf litter is so deep. There's you would never see a footprint unless they stepped in the brook. We started clearing out the back half of the acreage, and I said, we're going to clear. I have a hunting berm, whatever you call it, for archery. I want that cleared out. And I said, but that section up front, we're only keeping that path. That's for them. I don't want them coming into the open,
Yeah, I hate to say it. I think you'll eventually end up seeing them, Linda. I mean, it sounds like they're around that property. And it usually starts this way with most people. And most people will say, well, it's haunted. I mean, I've heard that a million times from people that say, well, it's haunted. And I'm like, well, why is it haunted? And they'll say, I
live in a house that's over 250 years old, and let me tell you about ghosts.
Yeah.
No,
I believe it out there in Maine. I believe it.
Yeah. So it's actually, though, I had a house that was a Sears Craftsman house that my son has now, and I would see the lady sitting on the porch in a rocking chair that I don't have, and then I would see her husband working at the tool bench that he built in the basement that. There's no tools at, it was a folding table for me. But I'm like, okay, so I know what ghosts look like. I know what they sound like. I'm like, these are not ghosts.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think it's ghosts because they'll have banging on the house in the middle of the night. They can't figure out why. Or they'll have weird, like your sister saying something ran across the roof.
Right.
And a lot of people look at that and go, well, it must be ghosts. Because it can't be Sasquatch, because Sasquatch isn't real, so it must be ghosts.
Right, exactly, right. I'm going, there's no way. I'm thinking, my husband goes, you really want to see one? I said, no, I really don't, because I don't really care to see something 8 feet tall that could break me in half with, one look, I'm like, no, I don't, all of everything I've heard, you don't want to see one. So as this was happening, I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, and I wear glasses, and I just can't stand them. So I put them on my head all the time. And I was like, don't open your eyes. I did not want to see what was at the tree line. I did not want to look at the tree line because I'm like, no, I don't want to see one. So I finally opened my eyes and realized I didn't have glasses on, so I couldn't see anyways. It was hysterical. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to see. But there was nothing there. I mean, there was nothing, but thank God they didn't come out.
Well, let me ask you, what do you think that Sasquatch is? I mean, I realize you haven't seen one yet, but you're experiencing stuff that's very typical of Sasquatch behavior. What's your opinion?
Well, I believe that it is in its own category. It's itself. It's, we don't question what an elephant is. We don't question what a lion is. It's got to be some kind of breed between human and ape. I mean, but it's itself. It's its own, what is the good word for that? It's in its own little genre, I guess, category, right? Its own, I don't know about that whole biblical thing and the Nephilim and all that. So I can't even go down that road, but I just think it's its own thing. It's just a beast. It's just another thing in the forest that's alive and well. And, some people believe, I have a great family, by the way. They all support me in this. They tolerate me and listen to Sasquatch Chronicles with me.
Yeah.
But,
well, it's one of those things to where, like I said, I think you're eventually going to see them. I think they're eventually going to make a mistake. And, little kids like your grandson, your granddaughter, I think it was your granddaughter telling you, oh, something's growling at the window. Kids don't make things up like that. They're not going to sit and say something's growling at the window unless something's growling at the window.
I was like, oh.
Yeah. And so it might have been coming up, and you hear about them coming up to kids' windows all the time.
Yeah. Well, my grandson went right out there, walked around the whole house. So, but he said he didn't see anything, And I know the neighbors have heard the barking too. They're like, I go, it's not really a dog though. It's not a dog. whatever it is. It's not a dog. I don't know.
Yeah, you
I don't
have
know what it
to.
is.
You have to keep me up to date. If you ever look up a gorilla barking, that's the closest thing that I could say, because I've heard the barking before. And you're right, it's not quite a dog. It's off.
Right, it's off.
Right. But if you look up a gorilla barking, because they do bark, it's very similar to that. And I'm not saying Sasquatch is a gorilla. I'm saying it's very similar to that type of vocalization. It's definitely doesn't sound like a canine. It sounds different.
Exactly. I was really freaked out. And I decided, when we started coming up here, I just knew. I was like, my husband's part Native American, and he does the sage and the tobacco, and we always bless the house when we get here and try to claim it as our own. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just like, this is mine. I don't know what else to do. I mean, like I said, I have the spotlights, but that's about it. I don't really have anything else.
Yeah, usually the spotlights will stop them from coming up if you have motion detention or
I do.
And the other thing that really works too is if that doesn't stop them, and for whatever reason, I don't have a great answer, but if you buy trail cams, and sometimes the cheaper the trail cam, the better, it seems to keep them away. And why, I don't know, but it does seem to keep them away.
It's definitely an interesting creature.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's a mystery. It's very strange, very odd. And, when I ask people what do you think Sasquatch is, you get a lot of different answers. And, most people may not necessarily be wrong on their answers. But It does seem like it falls somewhere in the gray area between a man and an animal, which is so bizarre because there's nothing else on the planet that is like that. To me, anyway. I mean, people might say a gorilla, but I don't see a man when I look at a gorilla, and I don't see a man when I look at a chimpanzee. But there's a lot of situations where people look at this thing and they go, well, it reminded me of a man. Just a big, hairy, giant man.
Right.
Which is bizarre.
Well, I needed to tell you, because the property next to mine was sold in Maine, because there's now 2 residents here, we have to name the road, and my neighbors included us in that, and we all agreed it would be called, you're going to love this, it's called Paymula Path. And Paymula comes from the episode you had on with Brock. Is it Bill Brock from Maine? He does.
Oh, yeah.
He talked about Paymula on Mount Katahdin, and then what it means is the keeper of the mountain, aka Sasquatch. So my neighbors absolutely love it, and they're going to name it Paymula Path.
Interesting. Yeah.
So Paymula Path, thanks to Wes, we're going to have it named permanently.
Well, there you go. Well, and that's pretty cool, actually, especially since you get to name the road. Mm-hmm. But do me a favor, keep me up to date. Let me know if anything else happens out there.
I will.
It doesn't sound like it's going to be quieting down anytime soon.
No, especially now. Well, they're putting in a catwalk, so to go from one loft to another loft instead of using ladders to protect me, because that's how I fell. I was going up in the loft and I just missed the step and fell 7 feet and broke my back.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah, I've had a broken back since I was 13 years old, so it's just normal.
Yeah,
it's just what I deal with. It's just so frustrating, but.
Well, do this for me. Keep me up to date.
I will.
I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me, Wes. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you again, Linda. And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. If you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member and get additional shows. Until next time, everyone.
Sports betting is sweeping across the country faster than the coronavirus, and Wagering Week is your antidote. I'm Tom Martin, and I'm a veteran sports analyst and respected sports handicapper who helped build ESPN's brand. I've been recognized and awarded by Pro Football Weekly and Gaming Today magazine as the honest handicapper. Let the other guys give you the same old boring sports talk with the same tired storylines. We'll give it to you straight here every Friday on Wagering Week. Don't gamble with other podcasts. Let Sports Garden Network's Wagering Week help your bottom line.